Well, welcome to the 700 Club, the final countdown in the 2024 presidential campaign. It all comes down to battleground states where the margins are razor thin.
Voters across the country are lining up to cast their ballots, and election officials are taking extra security precautions to protect them. Charlene Aaron has the story.
More than 80 million Americans have already voted. Today, millions more will cast their ballots, with polls showing a tight race to the very end. In the final hours of the campaign, President Trump making his case, blitzing North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Michigan.
Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?
The Harris campaign spread out across Pennsylvania, ending on top of the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia.
And here at these famous steps, a tribute to those who start as the underdog and climb to victory.
Polls show the race between Trump and Harris still a toss-up in 7 battleground states. According to the final numbers from Emerson College polling, The Hill, the races are so close, they're a statistical tie.
The polls are now open!
These Virginia voters telling CBN News what issues are most important to them.
Economy, economy, economy. I vote my wallet.
Economy, 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 just like he just said.
I would say women's rights and education.
Considering that I'm leaving tonight for my son to graduate Marine Corps boot camp, I'm very excited for this election, and I'm hoping that we get the right person in there.
This 81-year-old poll worker said the right to vote is precious, and she's encouraging others to do their part.
I was born in Edenton, North Carolina, and at that time, we weren't allowed to vote. I fought, I marched, and I fought to get this day that we have a right to vote.
Meanwhile, state officials are beefing up security to keep election workers and polling places safe. This vote-counting site in Maricopa County, Arizona, has added metal detectors, armed guards, surveillance cameras, and, if necessary, a SWAT team.
We don't want to intimidate anybody. We just want to make sure that the people inside that building are secure.
And in the nation's capital, security fences have been installed in case of violent protests following the election. CBN News will be following the latest with both campaigns throughout the night.
Hi, I'm Michelle London here in Washington, D.C., where I'll be covering the latest results from the Kamala Harris campaign. More than 90,000 of her volunteers have been going from door to door, especially in those key battleground states, even releasing ads that will run throughout this election day. In a final push to persuade late, undecided, and low-propensity voters to turn out at the polls.
I'm Tara Mergener in West Palm Beach covering the Trump campaign. Trump's delivered a persistent message of law and order coupled with a hardline stance on immigration and is counting on those issues being top of mind for many voters this election day.
Analysts say while some states will know the winner tonight, it could take days to know the final result. Charlene Aaron, CBN News.
Well, today is the day. Please resolve to get out and vote. If you haven't already, please let your voice be heard. You can watch our election night coverage on the CBN News Channel and the CBN News YouTube channel. It all starts at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And then at 11 o'clock tonight, we'll have a special election edition of the 700 Club. In other news, voters in 10 states will decide abortion amendments to their state constitutions. John Jessup has more on that story from the CBN Newsroom. John?
Thanks, Gordon. Putting constitutional amendments on state ballots has become a trend since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade back in 2022. CBN's Lori Johnson tells us where it's happening in this election cycle.
This will be the first presidential election since the historic Supreme Court decision, and both sides of the abortion debate are waiting to see how the increase in likely voters affects the outcome of these constitutional questions. These are the states where abortion is on the ballot. Nebraska is the only one with dueling initiatives, one calling for abortion access and another banning it after 12 weeks.
So this is extremely important that voters understand the stakes, not just for the tens of thousands of babies whose lives are at risk, but also for their moms and for the taxpayers who don't want to fund elective abortions.
Most of the amendments would allow abortion until about 24 weeks, which is known as fetal viability, the point where the baby can live outside the womb. If passed, they would replace laws restricting the procedure, such as in Missouri, which bans abortion during any phase of pregnancy.
These conversations are the most important part of our campaign efforts. Going to doors allows us to talk to people who either haven't heard about the total abortion ban or are unaware of the amendment trying to restore abortion rights.
Anti-abortion groups also out in force, praying and campaigning, pushing back on the wording of the proposals, such as labeling it as health care.
What is health care? What is health care? Does it include terminating lives in utero? Does it? No, I don't think so. Abortion is not about intervention measures to protect, preserve, promote the life of the woman or the life of the unborn.
Florida, home to former President Trump, has a 6-week ban and is the most populous state considering greater access. He plans to vote against it, as does NFL Hall of Famer Tony Dungy.
I happen to believe that these babies in the womb are lives. And I know everybody doesn't believe that, but I happen to believe it. My Bible tells me that they are.
Meanwhile, Floridians supporting the measure are reaching out to voters, including immigrants.
The Latino community and the issues that drive us are complex, and they're diverse just like we are.
Abortion is legal up to fetal viability in Maryland, Montana, Nevada, New York, and Colorado. If the ballot initiatives pass in these states, the laws would be formally enshrined, preventing legislatures from undoing them. Pro-lifers trying to make sure that doesn't happen.
So that's going to be our main focus, is just getting to the millions of persuadable voters, some of whom don't always turn out, and make sure every pro-lifer in America is turning out to vote and that they are voting their values.
People motivated to vote on the abortion issue will also be helping to decide other key issues like the presidency or the balance of power in Congress. For example, 2 key presidential battleground states, Arizona and Nevada, are also considering abortion. So is Montana, where Democrat incumbent Senator John Tester is in a close race and emphasizing his support for the measure. So while we may see people who don't normally vote cast a ballot in one of these states, they could also tip the scale in other races. Lori Johnson, CBN News.
All right, thank you, Lori. Well, the United States election has widespread international implications, especially for the state of Israel. Citizens there are paying close attention to the outcome, even as they're on heightened alert against threats from Iran. CBN's Julie Stahl has the story.
The IDF says it's in a higher state of alert as it anticipates an attack from Iran or its proxies.
Looking forward, I say this to you, we are highly prepared across all fronts.
Iran is threatening both Israel and the United States. Iranian demonstrators are chanting death to Israel and death to America as they wave signs reading, "We'll trample America." Iran's supreme leader says forces are moving into position to attack.
Thanks to Allah, the officials are already busy doing that.
To prevent a direct Israeli counterattack on Iran itself, the Islamic regime may use its militias in Iraq. Iran's proxies in Iraq have launched a number of suicide drones against Israel in the last few days. Even while facing imminent attack and fighting a war on multiple fronts, Israelis are glued to the U.S. elections. Here at Shiloh, where the Ark of the Covenant rested for 369 years, about 150 Orthodox Jews gathered to pray for America.
We are in a critical time of a war of good versus evil. From here we pray that God will shine his face for everyone that work with him and do whatever he can for the United States of America, for Israel, and for the whole land.
Shiloh is the place where Hannah cried out to God for a child, and he answered by giving her a son named Samuel.
We see that tens of millions of Bible-believing Christians are praying for the peace of Jerusalem every day, and we said, you know what, we need to do something for America, and what we decided to do is come together and pray also for America's peace, prosperity.
Julie Stahl, CBN News, Jerusalem and Shiloh.
With more than 70 countries voting this year, Gordon, all eyes are still on the United States.
And that's because we're still the leader of the free world. We don't view ourselves in that platform anymore. You know, you do question, do we still believe in the ideals of democracy and free speech and free press and freedom of assembly, all of these things. You look at the constitutions we put into place in Iraq and Afghanistan. We allowed Sharia law to be part of their constitutional framework, and under Sharia law, you don't have any of those rights. So do we still believe in ourselves? That's an open question, and part of this election is okay, do we still do that? Do we still trust in elections? Do we still abide by the results of elections? Those are all going to be tested over the next few weeks, few days, few hours. But here's something that we ought to keep in mind. Nations around the world are praying for us. They want to see a free America. They want to see the city on the hill, a shining light. They want us to recognize that freedom is the oxygen of humanity. Humanity always thrives in that environment. And so they are praying for us. They're not praying for a specific outcome, but what they're praying for is that in the aftermath of this election, and aftermath is probably a strong term, but there could be repercussions that could further divide us. If we divide ourselves and defeat ourselves, we can no longer lead this wonderful nation. We can no longer be the leader of the world. So they're praying that we come to our senses and realize we can be one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can have these ideals. We can live them. Now, here's some really bad news. There are some nation states that are under dictators who want to see us fall. And I'll name them. Iran. They have vowed to attack us. And they've done it in the last week. You see those protests, they really mean that. They want to trample the USA. North Korea creating new ballistic missiles in order to reach the United States of America. And they have nuclear weapons. They're joining with China, and they're joining with Russia, all in an alliance economically, politically, militarily, to see us be defeated. Let us not defeat ourselves. Let's realize our position in the world. Let's once again strive to be that city on the hill, the example to every nation. When you follow what God has clearly laid out in His Bible, when you follow that, you can truly be free, and you can be a free people that will lead the world and show the world what can happen when you just obey. Isn't that wonderful? Let's strive for that, and let's strive for unity in the results, whatever they are. Can we come together as one nation under God?